Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello, welcome along to Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Great to have your company with us today. It's going to be an absolutely cracking show. I've been looking forward to this program for absolute months and months and months. On today's show, we're going to be discussing how to create impact with your communications. Now, the word impact will all come clear as the program progresses. Joining me in the studio today is one of my favourite motivational speakers. Some people would say that he's probably the UK's leading #1 motivational speaker. We've had a few of them on the programme, haven't we? My guest today is Nigel Risner. Nigel, lovely to have you with us.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, you know, a lot of people will go, Nigel Risner, I've seen him. And a lot of people will go, who's he then? So for those people that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about Nigel Risner.
So I've been speaking all over the world for about 19 years and done lots of work with chief executive groups, which is how I originally started. And then from there started to do conferences, seminars, in-house work. But I've been blessed for the last 7 years to be travelling all over the world, doing stuff that I love doing, especially creating impact with my clients and teaching them how to communicate really well.
It's all a bit of a tease this. We're going to keep using the word impact and then we shall reveal all to you as the program progresses. There are a lot of motivational speakers out there, and there's a lot of motivational speakers, I feel, that do the talk but don't really do the walk because they've never truly had the experience of working in business. That's not in your case, is it?
I was blessed that I started working at 16, and then I went to Israel, played professional tennis for 2 years, headhunted back to the UK to work in a bank, and then at 20 started a finance company with a partner who had an estate agent. And he sold nursing homes and residential homes, and I financed them. And from a £12.80 start to having 75 staff with 5 offices around the country, bought him out with venture capital, virtually going public, not going public, leaving my own business, starting all over again from home. I've been there in big business, I've been there with the lawyers, I've been there with accountants, and I've been there working with teams. And if I only knew now what I knew then, my business would have been in a different direction.
When you walk into businesses now, do you see the same mistakes over and over again? Is there a Nigel Risner tick list that goes, yep, they're doing that badly, they're doing this badly, they need to address this? Do you see that? Are we always reinventing the wheel, each and every business that we come across?
I did a seminar recently and I said, turn up early, be nice, leave them wanting more. And people said, slow down, we've got to write this down. And that was a worry for me, because I thought that was pretty standard. But most businesses, if you just are nice to your customers and you know your staff's personal needs, which I'm sure we'll come on to later on, and you communicate well, you would have a good business. The problem is we're not nice. We don't listen to our staff and we don't communicate well and we wonder why we have problems, and then we blame the bigger boys, or we blame the internet, or we blame some new scheme. My brother-in-law's a taxi driver. Of course, all black cab drivers are really upset with Uber.
Yeah.
All Uber did was come up with a new concept to drive people. And when they turn up in a new car that's relatively clean, people go, I like this.
Yep.
In business, all you want is someone to serve you nicely and to listen to you. It was a bit like when I got here today. I was looked after, I was given water, offered tea, sat down, shown the toilets. That's all you want.
Just to be nice to people.
Yes.
So when you walk into businesses, do you often see the culture of fear, management by fear? I've worked in organisations where it's been management by maybe a CEO's name. If you don't do this...
See, there's no such thing as culture in an organisation. There's culture of people. So when you say, well, that's the culture of the organisation, it's never the culture of the organisation. It's just the culture of people. So if you have nice people, you have a nice culture. And if you have not nice people, you have a not nice culture. It's that simple. But you can go into the same fast food store that looks identical to one 3 miles away, the same bank that looks exactly the same as one 3 miles away, and you walk into a bank, you walk into a hamburger joint, and you will notice within seconds the energy. You'll feel something, the way the staff look at you. I recently asked for a burger without chips. It was cheaper to have the burger with chips because that became part of like a happy meal. But I didn't want the chips because I was on one of my many diets. She couldn't work this out. This was just like too complicated. I said, just give me the burger with chips, but I don't want the chips. I'll have the happy meal. She said, we've got to give you the chips. I said, I don't want the chips. This went on for about 5 minutes. I said, if you give me the chips, all I'm going to do is I'm going to throw them away. She said, if that's what you need to do. And at that point, I knew there was an issue with the organisation. So I literally took the chips. I saw a little kid there, and I wasn't sure if it was acceptable to give it to the kid. But the idea was, I didn't want the chips. But you couldn't have the burger without the chips at the same price.
We do always. I'm dealing with a large multinational at the moment, and trying. I promise you, I won't go on about it. But I mean, I am dealing with a large multinational at the moment, and they too are steeped in systems that they cannot change. They cannot make them right for the customer. The systems are there for them.
But they can change the system. But they're scared of what the ground rules are, and they're scared of, if we don't follow the system, what will happen. Now you have a fear of what could happen. And I share all the time, I don't think anyone's ever been fired for handing not the chips over. I've never seen it, even in the Daily Mail, there would be a headline story. Yes. Someone fired for not handing over the chips when we didn't ask for it. But we live in a culture where if you are nice and you have nice staff and you communicate well, there's a good chance you make a success.
What about, you've got the experience of running a large multinational, running a large financial company, and you had 75 staff there. Do you think sometimes there is a disconnect between senior management and their staff, not understanding how the staff actually feel? They think everything, the senior management think everything is okay, but the actual staff think it's just awful.
Well, I'll make it even easier. If I had have known at the time that the thing that drives people is what their personal needs are and not money, I would have kept more of my staff. We had a guy join our finance company, and I gave him, the package was a nice salary with a company car. Then literally a week before, one of my directors was getting rid of a Golf GTI. Every boy's racing car dream. And I thought,
in those days?
Yes, and I thought, this was the 80s, and I thought, I'll give him that car instead of the Ford Sierra that we were going to be giving him. The problem was he had told everyone he was getting a brand new car. And now I was offering him a 6-month-old car, much better, and I thought he'd be delighted. The guy left in 4 months. And subsequently I found out it's because he didn't get what he asked for, because I thought he's getting a much better deal. But he had told everyone he was getting a brand new red Sierra.
So how do businesses, I mean, we've got business owners that are watching this right now. They're sitting in their own little bubble thinking that everything's okay in the garden, and they don't really realise what their staff are thinking or how they're being motivated, and how also they are allowing them to engage with both customers and the business.
So there's only one thing worse than motivated and trained staff leaving your organisation. And that's untrained and unmotivated staff staying in your organisation. And here's the problem every day. That what happens is, we're doing a message today to owners. Most owners have no idea that what people actually want is time with their children. They want freedom to think. They want to be trusted. They want to get on with what they need to do. Alison, who's been my PA for 20 years, we have a phrase that says, performance equals potential less interference. She has jobs to do, and I have jobs to do. The amount of times I interfere, and then she goes crazy because this is her job. But I just want to check what she's doing. And I know all this, and I still do it. Now, if I know it and still do it, imagine all the people who don't know it and are doing it. But at least we know how to communicate with better impact to clear. So every Friday we'll have a chat, and she'll say, remember what you did last week really upset me. But at least we know. But there are people who've been let go of, where there's issues been going on for 10 years and no one's really shared the bottom line. So if you're going to communicate with your staff, you have to do what I call TTTTF. Tell the total truth faster. But what most people do is they tell a little bit of the truth and not very fast.
Hence the problems that they find themselves in.
If not today, tomorrow. 20% of all staff are thinking of leaving right now. So everyone who's watching this programme, 20% of your staff are actively thinking of leaving, have thought about leaving, or just waiting for something better to turn up. The problem is those 20% are engaging with your customers.
But don't you think, though, I mean, the kind of guy you are, you're a formidable guy. Your nickname is the Bulldog that I've heard people refer to you as. I've heard that. And there have been times that when you're standing up and you're presenting on stage, you can
That's kind of nice, though.
Is that a nice nickname?
I've been called a lot worse. If it's only Bulldog, I'm okay with that.
You're right there.
I just want people to understand that there is a message that needs to be shared with the team.
Isn't that a problem then, that people approaching you? I mean, I approached you to come on the programme, and you're actually a really nice guy. But there must be people that would find you quite intimidating.
There are 20% of the population who just can't cope with my direct style, because I only have one interest at heart, is to make you, this show, your clients, the people watching, better than they were before we started. That's my only aim. That means there's going to be some people who won't like this message. And I need to tell you, I'm okay with that.
You don't care?
No, it's not that I don't care. I'm okay if they don't get me. But if they followed the plan, and I don't care what plan they follow, but they've got to follow a plan. If they listen to this programme and they learn to be nice, communicate well, create an impact, their business will be better. Their relationships will be better. But there are some people who'd much rather be right than happy.
Yeah.
So there's a whole group of people going, I like what he's saying, but I'm not going to do it. No, I know I haven't spoken to my wife for 10 years, but we're happy. Oh, are you? Are your team happy? There is a small percentage of people who have a vested interest in your life not working. They are happy to see the show not work. They're happy for the transmission to not work. They're waiting for the Wi-Fi not to work or the transmission to be something. They'll be delighted. The problem is that's a very small percentage, and I don't worry about them anymore. So if I do an evaluation, if I look at my evaluations and 95% say I'm brilliant, I'm okay with that.
Listen, hold that thought for a moment. It's fascinating. My guest of today's programme is Nigel Risner, one of the UK's leading motivational business speakers, a man who's been there and done that. We've got more to come. We're going to tell you what I.M.P.A.C.T's all about in just a moment on this edition of Business Connections Live. Cracking show. Listen, if you watch no more than the piece that you've just seen now and you go away, I feel that you've probably already got something out of the programme. Even if it's just made you sit back for a moment and reconsider where you are sitting with the relationship that you have with your staff and the relationship that you're having with your customers as well. I mean, it seems very simple. And there is a question, I think, to many businesses. Why do we seem to try to overcomplicate it? Why do we try to make it more difficult than it really is? Really, all it is communicating with somebody else, talking to somebody else, and then, surprisingly, listening to what they say and reacting to that. And it's strange, isn't it? Sometimes within the society that we live in, if we put badges on people, if we put something, a little badge, CEO, Sir this or that, Lord this, that or that, all of a sudden it seems that even though they may be no better at doing what you're talking about, we then give them the respect for that position, and that sometimes can actually get in the way as well. Listen, we're going to talk more about all of this, but more importantly, we're also going to be talking about impact in your business. What does that mean? How can you implement it into your business, and how can you make your business a better place to be working in, and more importantly, make it more successful? That's more to come with Nigel Risner in just a few moments' time. Let's look back at last week's edition of the programme. We had a cracking show last week. We were talking about Brexit, but then wasn't everybody last week talking about Brexit? Article 50 has now been signed, of course, and we now find ourselves at the very beginning of the negotiations. It's looking like it isn't going to be a pleasant experience, and we looked last week at what could actually affect trade when it comes to what will happen as Article 50 is triggered and has been triggered. So what is the position that we find ourselves in? We had international lawyer Steve Hyland from Warwick Legal Network. He came and he talked all about Brexit last week and the implications. Now, the thing to remember about this programme, Stuart made it very clear he is a Remainer. He wanted to stay within the EU. But last week it was very interesting because he did actually sit on the fence, and we took both perspectives of it. It was a cracking show. Just a reminder of what was said, here is Stuart Miller on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. We're going to be discussing Brexit. After Article 50 is triggered, what lies ahead for UK's international trade position? Where's it going to leave us? Our guest on today's show is Stuart Miller, Managing Director of Warwick Legal Networks.
I think we have to move forward to making the best of what is next. The argument about the merits of Brexit, leaving or remaining, I think we're in some senses settled on the 24th of June. Yeah, I think, again, you know, the lawyer's training says look at part of this in terms of process. Look at what is going to happen next as a result of the provisions of Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, as a result of the arrangements that the EU will be looking for us to negotiate with them. Over a year ago, I wrote an article for the German Chamber of Commerce in the UK about, you know, what the process would look like if we voted to leave. And I made a comment in that article that I felt that the 2-year time period set down by Article 50 would barely scratch the surface of the time it takes to come up with a viable set of rules for us to go forward with, having been part of this trading bloc for 43 years. That likelihood seems to me as real as ever. In other words, I think that 2 years won't do it. We're about to enter into the end of the beginning. So expect towards the end of April, beginning of May, that we'll be clear that the Commission has sorted out exactly what its terms of reference are. Now, it won't be able to tell us what those are because people don't reveal their hand entirely, but I do think there is a significant question about what the nature of Parliament's authority should be to accept or reject a deal. And you know, the idea that Parliament would not be able to reject the deal, I think is pretty much unanswerable. If it's only a deal that relates to the terms of exit, the bill that we pay if we pay something, and the technical consequences of us leaving, as opposed to a future free trade agreement. If it's just the one and not the other, then you don't need the ratification of the member states. But it seems to me much more likely that what we'll end up with is a hybrid deal that involves something looking forward. It'll involve either transitional arrangements for key areas of trade, or it'll involve the full free trade agreement. I think the first thing is to acknowledge what each side's interests are. It's Britain as a result of the Brexit vote that is looking to change the nature of the relationship. So I think we have to expect in the next year or two to do a lot of the running, to define what kind of relationship we want with the EU in the future, and make sure that we have elbow room for whatever the relationships are that we want with the rest of the world. Well, I'm Stuart Miller, Managing Director of Warwick Legal Network, and it's my job to make sure that the law firms that I represent are able to help businesses do international trade. Here in Britain, that means inward investment into the UK, and it means acting for exporters who are looking to export their goods and services internationally. What I would like British companies and into the international audience viewing this programme to do is put pressure on the European and British authorities to get recruiting the numbers of civil servants that we'll need for the negotiations to go as smoothly as possible, to reduce the scope of uncertainty for people who are living here, so that on both a commercial and a humanitarian level we can get beyond that issue that is bedeviling so many people's lives. I'd like us to think about how we're going to man the personnel requirements of specific industries here in the UK, such as our health service, our food industry, and the world of academia, where so many people come here to work from abroad, and we really have to have an answer to that question. And I'd like us to sort out the budget issue, so that the discussion about the future and the transitional arrangements that I think are necessary can be done without further distraction. That would be my message.
He's still trying to get us out. That's what we've all decided on that. That fabulous Stuart Miller there, the Managing Director of Warwick Legal Network, and we were talking about what's going to be happening when it comes to international trade between the UK and the EU. Well, who knows? We've finished the beginning. We're now at the beginning of the start of the out. Are you following this? If you're enjoying today's show, that's fantastic. If you'd like a program just like this one, if you want to communicate with your employees, your workforce, here's a real opportunity now to give us a call or to get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live. We do internal comms. That's what we're all about. We do internal comms. We do corporate video. Of course we do. Everybody does that. But what we've got a bit of an edge when it comes to putting together corporate comms that you can get out to your staff that people, when they see it, will actually engage with, and it's all about engagement. If you are sending out at the moment a newsletter, well, listen, you've got a website that they're reading, and now you're sending them out a newsletter that they're reading, and of course all the stats say that people don't engage as long as they used to. I think some of that's baloney. I think it is all about engagement, and if they're not engaging with the content that you're sending out, it's because the content that you're sending out is rubbish. Now, instead of having them being readers, why don't you turn them into viewers? I mean, it's a lot more engaging, isn't it? You get to feel the person, you get to know the person, you kind of read the person. Now, if you'd like to have a program just like this one, why not get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live? It's that easy, as I said. Drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. If you'd like to chat to either myself or to Linda Bazant, in fact, then you can give us a call. We don't mind. 01784 256 777 is our telephone number. If you want to follow our stream of consciousness on Twitter, we too are ruling the world from Twitter, like somebody else is in America at the moment, the big Donald, of course. Then you can follow us at BCL Business TV. Don't forget, you can watch the program as well every Monday live on Facebook Live. And if you want and you'd like to have 200 hours of free business advice, then you can go to our website at www.businessconnectionslive.com. But it really is as simple and as easy as that. All that information absolutely for free. Why don't you just check it out and maybe use some of the information and the knowledge that is there from our business experts that join us on the program. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have your company with us today. My guest on today's show is leading UK business speaker Nigel Risner in the studio. We're going to be talking about impact. Now, before we start talking to Nigel, again, a couple of books that he is a published author as well. Isn't every motivational speaker a published author?
No.
There you go. That told me, didn't it? So you've got this one, The Impact Code, Live the Life That You Deserve. It's a fascinating book. You can get this on Amazon, I would imagine, yeah?
Yes.
Available on Amazon. A really good read. I've got this on my Kindle at the moment. It's a fascinating book. If you're looking, and it's one of those books that when you pick it up and you start reading it, you'll find that you will read it all the way through because you think that, that's good advice. Oh, that's not bad advice either. Oh, that's good too. And then you find yourself trying to rewrite the book in your notes because you're taking notes from it. It's a great book. The other book is It's a Zoo Around Here, The New Rules for Better Communication from Nigel Risner. There's the... How did he get a picture of me on the front of his book? Which one? There you go. Great book once again, and you know this is one of those books that you pick up and you get quick advice. It's the kind of thing that you get where cracking book once again. It's a Zoo Around Here, Nigel Risner. What was the darling? What was the motivation? That's the first one, isn't it? That's the main book, isn't it?
That's the main book, which is the whole of my theories about creating impact. The Zoo book, which is all about communication, is the C of impact, because we spend so long in organisations helping them communicate. We thought we'll do a special book just for them. But we wrote the book in 4 languages. So most people write and do emails and do television shows in the language of the person who's producing the show or who is writing the program. I realised that there are many different animals in the workplace. So as a major monkey, so I have a very short attention span, I wrote the book with lots of colour pages, not many words on each page. And so our section is right at the beginning in yellow.
Yes.
Then we realised that the lions, who are the directors, who need just bottom line information, which they can plagiarise really easily, theirs is second, but they've got short paragraphs because they'd much rather be right than happy. The elephants, who need lots of detail, there are graphs and there are details in there, and no, that's the dolphins. You've gone to the wrong section there, but that's okay because I didn't explain myself clearly because I'm a monkey. They're the dolphins, they're the nice people, they hug everybody, they just want the whole world to be nice. But the green section, which is the elephants, when you go a little bit further, you will find that there are not only lots more paper, but there is a yellow graph for them which can interact with them, keep going, and there's loads and loads, keep going and keep going and keep going, and then you'll find...
I'm getting there.
And another page, another page, go on, one more page.
One more page.
This is designed for the elephants because they need structure, data, detail, and none of the monkeys are going to read this, which is why we don't even put it at the beginning of the book. Only elephants read to the end. So when you're communicating with people and you want to make an impact, if you don't know the language of your listener, you are just being an animal. If you really become an effective zookeeper, which is what your job is when you do this show, is to communicate to the masses who are listening, some on web stream, some are watching it live, some of who know how to download this for later use. There's not a chance I'll know how to do that. So if I can't watch it live, it never gets watched. If there's a WinZip attachment in an email, I don't know how to undo it because it goes behind into a folder. Monkeys don't do that. So when you know how to communicate like a zookeeper, and if you think how zookeepers operate, they give the right food to the right animals to get the right performance. When you're in a hurry, though, and you all know this from a show that you have produced, where you've got someone in your ear telling you 2 minutes to wrap up, you will go back to your natural language, and that's where all the problems occur. So when you become an effective zookeeper, communication is really easy.
When you meet managing directors, and we've divided CEOs, large corporate businesses, predominantly, what are they?
Well,
monkeys?
Well, not necessarily. Richard Branson, who's a massive entrepreneur who does some crazy things, is a massive monkey. So he has wild ideas, doesn't quite know how he's going to get there, but then employs really brilliant people. If you remember the days of Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, it was one way or no way. It was her way or the highway. So you have a lot of managing directors who are entrepreneurs who've got an idea but can't implement them. And then you have some very staunch, clever people who are managing directors who don't have the energy to enthuse other people. Then you might have a chartered accountant, and Gordon Brown was the classic example. And without getting into politics, he may have been a phenomenal chancellor, wasn't a great prime minister, in my opinion, because he didn't know how to communicate.
Yes.
So phenomenal what his job was, whether he'd been a lawyer, solicitor, an architect, a design engineer, but wasn't great with the passion.
And this is the problem, isn't it? Sometimes people, it's nearly the Peter principle, isn't it? But in a slightly different way, promoted to your level of incompetence, isn't it? And it wasn't that he was incompetent, he just didn't have the necessary skills in that particular
He was
field.
phenomenal as chancellor in that sense of the logistics of what his job was. But if you put him in front of all the people, that wasn't his real role. And so you have lots of politicians, you have lots of managing directors, you have lots of business coaches or football coaches who have a specific role. And then when you ask them to do lots of different things for lots of different people, that's where they fall short. So I teach, are you being an effective zookeeper to your people so you can make an impact? So when I work as a monkey, and I'm just messing about and I'm on stage and I don't follow the script because I didn't read all the stuff that you sent me because I just don't. So hopefully I'm doing okay.
Seem to be.
But I won't know that's because you're a bit of a monkey too. So you've got two monkeys doing an interview. This is not great news. But if we had, one of us was a bit more technically minded or one of us was a bit more strict to the point, one of us probably would be falling short. I always know if I can get to the middle position. Have you ever played squash?
Yes.
Because you look the squash type of player.
Well, it really...
In squash, the person who holds
snake hips.
The person who holds the centre position in squash traditionally wins the game.
Yeah.
The person who can get to the centre of communication normally has the best communication skills. The problem is in communication is that some of us are listening and some of us are waiting to respond. And the greatest listeners are the greatest communicators.
And it's strange, isn't it? Because I've worked in a number of organisations, broadcast organisations, and because they are all the speakers, there's very little listening goes on. And in many of the broadcast organisations I've worked, they are the world's worst communicators internally.
And here's the problem, it's always about internal communication. If you want an organisation to be phenomenal externally, you have to get your internal comms done first. So internal communication to me is the most important. Staff come first and then the customers come second. But if you don't talk well to your staff internally, they talk badly to your external customers.
Yeah. All right, now listen, I've got to bring you back on track because the book's the clue.
Two monkeys in a room.
Two monkeys in a room,
problem.
That's the problem. So look, the I.M.P.A.C.T code, we're talking impact. People will hear that and they think it's nearly a God thing that's going on here. And that isn't what we're talking about. The impact, it's a mnemonic, isn't it?
Everything that I do is to make an impact in the moment. And if you're not making an impact, why would you do it? So the original part of impact was always about being in the room. So right now, I'm in the room, I'm in the studio with you.
Now explain that, because I heard you say this at one of your talks, and it really did. It really resonated with me. It's just give us it in English about being in the room.
Okay, so my phrase is, if you're in the room, be in the room.
Right.
So I'm in this room, I'm in this studio, and I've got 2 kids who are somewhere, and I've got a business that's going on elsewhere, and I'm going to the States to speak on Friday in 4 days' time. I've got loads of things going on, and the only thing that matters to me in the whole wide world is you. So you are the only person who I love right now. Strange, I know, but that is the truth. And the reason I love you is because it's just you and me. In about an hour's time, I won't love you as much. I'll love the next people I'm with, but the people who I'm with are the people I love. So I'm not going to see my kids for another 3 days. So what's the point of me focusing on them if I'm in this studio with you?
So are we talking about, and we see this all the time as when we're standing on stages, people that are sitting in the audience on their iPhones, or other phones are available, but on their smartphones doing the text messaging?
Here's the whole point. So right now, I'm talking to you, but all of a sudden... Oh, sorry, you were saying something? And that's the point, that I think that whilst women can multitask better than men, and they can, we are often so busy in our lives that we've just got to check the chicken, we've just got to check the kids, we've just got to check my next phone call, the last client, we're going to do another segment, that we're not in the moment. So it's no use saying to people, turn your phones off, because people are conscious that they don't want to miss anything. So I now say to people, put your phones on silent, and if you are desperate every 20 odd minutes to look at your phone, but get back in the room. And if where you need to be is more important, if you had right now a water problem in your home and there was a plumbing issue and you had 10,000 gallons of water coming through your house, believe me, I'd want you to go and sort the house out. It would be more important than this interview. The difference is I'm being real. I don't think you'd be focused on this interview. We wouldn't be doing the best show we could. But if the house is now sorted out or the plumber's on its way and you can't do anything about it, let's be in the room. So when you're in the car, be in the car. When you're at home, be at home. And when you're in the studio, be in the studio.
Do you think now that I kind of mentioned it earlier on, that people have a short attention span? That's what the marketers would like you to have. I think it's the fact that we don't put out engaging material anymore. But do you think there is an addiction nearly to technology, that there's a lot of times that you see people walking down the street and they don't look forward anymore? People were saying when JFK died, not that I can remember this, that people can remember where they were. I can remember where I was when man landed on the moon. When Prince died, people won't remember where they were. They'll remember they were just looking at their phone.
I heard, and we've got a few younger listeners out there, I'm sure, that FOMO, that fear of missing out. We are so scared that if we don't know what's going on and we don't know on who's just checked into Costa Coffee. I'm baffled when I get on a Twitter feed, someone has checked into Costa Coffee, like that's going to change my world. But people do this daily. They check into business lounges, but I have to tell you, they've checked into a business lounge to let the whole world know that they have access to a lounge, or they're in Starbucks, or wherever the business might be. When I go to a lounge before I fly, I'm only too excited that I'm in a lounge. I want to enjoy the lounge. I don't want to be wasting my time.
Hang on a second, I've just got to tell everybody I'm in the lounge.
Well, you say that in Dubai airport, there are extra points for checking in a lounge. So people who are late for their flight go via the lounge, check in, get extra 6 air miles, and then go out. The whole plane is waiting because Mrs. Smith has to let people know they're in a lounge. And then we read and then we write back, have a lovely flight, instead of having dinner with the children. My kids know on a Friday night when I sit down with them, there are no phones at the table. We have one night a week where there are no phones allowed at the table whatsoever, including guests, unless there's a doctor who might be on call. We have a couple of friends. Here's the point. How many times are you not engaged because your mind is somewhere else?
Yes, you're right. How often does that happen? We wander, don't we?
It's called M.P.A.C.T, missing, presumed selling.
Hold the thought. Back in a moment with my guest today, Nigel Risner, UK's leading business speaker. and we've just scratched the surface. We've actually done a letter from the word impact. When you're in the room, you're in the room. Still to come, model from the best: passion, action, communication, and also trust, all to come. Not really stealing his thunder, because you'll hear that he will explain all of that as we work our way through the word impact, and why we should all be using maybe impact in our lives, and not just for business meetings or for the organisation that we work in, but for getting out there, maybe living our life a little bit better. Because sometimes, I mean, it's going to happen to you tonight, isn't it? You're going to go home. Will you be in the room when you're with your other half, when you should be speaking to them, when you should be communicating with them? Does that sometimes happen in your house? Or are you lost in the technology that is maybe your laptop or your smartphone? More to come from Nigel Risner in just a few moments' time. Okay, now let's go back to a previous program. This one's all about the power of charisma in business. The nice thing about it, now, Nigel is a member of the, I'll let you have a swig. Nigel is a speaker at the Public Speakers Association. Are you a member? You are a member. Of course you're a member.
I'm not only a member of the Professional Speakers Association,
Of the
I was
PSA.
awarded the Professional Speaker Award of Excellence last year, so about 8 of us have got this.
So that's quite something. That's quite an accolade, isn't
Well, it was given by your peers, so it's slightly better than, Blue Peter badge in that sense. But
Now, the PSA, it's an interesting place. So if people want to be public speakers or they want to improve their public
professional speakers.
Professional speakers,
Yeah, slight difference, because you've got Toastmasters where you can learn to speak, but if you want to be a professional speaker and you want to make a living out of speaking, the Professional Speakers Association has different regional meetings all over the country, and it's great to connect. It's a very lonely business being a speaker, but it's great to connect with other people. It's great to do showcases, great to get feedback, and there's some great conferences that they put on.
Do you? I mean, this is a very diverse organisation. Of the public speakers that you see at a PSA meeting, shall we say, if you go to one of their large meetings, are we looking at what, 5-10% of those people are really actually making a living from it? Do you think?
10% are probably making a good living from it.
So it can be done.
Look, I've been speaking 20 years, and I left school with a few O-levels, and I now have an MBA. Except mine stands for a massive bank account, which is the only one you want to get. But yes, you can make it, but you've got to be good. And no different to anything you do, it's a bit like, how do you get to be in the Premiership is by working hard. And how do you stay in the Premiership? By working even harder. And what you really want to get to is to be in the top 4, which go into Europe. And there are only 4 clubs that get into Europe. So it's the same type of percentage who are really making a good living.
And it's probably like that right across industry. Listen, we will talk. We're going to talk more about that. The reason I was talking about, actually, my Linda's father, God rest his soul, when he was around, we had a business card. He was our studio maintenance person. He would come and he'd paint all walls and he'd put things up. And at the end, on his business card, he had M.A.S. And people would go, what's that stand for? Mine's a Scotch. And I quite like that. So that was we had a bit of a laugh with all of that. The reason I brought up the whole area of the Public Speakers Association, Sylvia Baldock is the piece that we got. Now, Sylvia is a member also of the PSA. She came on the programme in January of this year. We were talking about the Charisma Connection. It enables you to discover the secret of engagement. It's designed to reconnect with your own natural charisma, so you find it easier to understand and to also motivate your team, resulting, it says, or she said, in greater engagement, productivity and profitability. Great show once again, and Sylvia is a fantastic guest to have on the programme. She's been on a couple of times. She's done a couple of programmes for us. If you get an opportunity, do watch both of them. But just a bit of a reminder of what Sylvia Baldock said on Business Connections Live.
Okay, so I'm Sylvia Baldock, and I'm a coach, a trainer, a speaker, an author, and I spend my life unlocking the hidden potential in individuals and teams. We all have an innate charisma. It's not your birthright, you're born with it. It becomes shrouded in layers of limiting self-belief and negativity, and these can be stripped away to let you stand up and shine and be the person you were born to be, doing the work that you love doing, that you're naturally talented in, that makes you feel valued and makes other people want to be in your presence.
She's a lovely, lovely lady. And of course, the other program that we talked about was all about personal branding as well. You'll notice whenever you see Sylvia Baldock, she is always resplendent in this lovely yellowy golden look. And if you go to a meeting anywhere, you know where Sylvia is, because she just is there. She is just bright, colourful, always with a smile, but some great advice, and she was talking all about the power of charisma. If you want to watch the programme, you'll find it is Business Connections Live 164. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Nigel Risner. He is a speaker, the UK's leading, I would say, motivational speaker. There's one thing that always struck me whenever I saw you, and this is a good piece of advice actually for businesses. You stand there and you always, I feel like you always tell everybody off when you stand, how much do you charge? This is a bit my impersonation. How much do you charge? Put your prices up. And it's very true, isn't it?
No, what I'm actually saying is, whatever you're charging, increase your fees by 10% because you are worth it. The problem is we are our worst competition. We anti-sell and we're nearly saying no in advance. So I tell people, if you're worth your fee of £500, put it up to £600. If you're worth £5,000, you're worth £6,000. Occasionally someone can say it's out of our budget. Then find out what else you can put in there so you can make your impact. So it's not that I'm tough on people, but we often put ourselves down before our client says no to us.
And you told the story as well that you, in your early days of speaking, you went out there and somebody phoned you up and said, "Would you come along and speak at my event?" And you thought, and you priced yourself down to get the gig, and they were so pleased because the gig actually there was more money available for it, and you must have been kicking yourself all the way to the bank on that.
I'd spent 3 months in America at the University of California, Santa Barbara, rehearsing. My name is Nigel, I charge $900. My name is Nigel, I charge $900. And their phone call was, what do you charge? $700. And they went, no problem. I said, what would have been a problem? They said, we had $1,400 in the budget. And there was the problem, that I was so worried I wasn't going to get the gig, that let's lower the fee. Today, fortunately, whilst there might be some flexibility, I start off on a much stronger position because there are times where you don't want the gig. And over the last 2 years, what we have done in our organisation is we de-hire 2 clients every year. Now, you'll be pleased to know you just made it this year.
Thank you.
But we de-hire 2 clients either because it's not fun to work with them, it's hassle, we don't make an impact, or they don't trust us. And you'll find out as we talk about the Impact Code, trust is key, but having fun is key. And if they don't let us have fun and play, we don't want to work with them.
I like what you did there, and you're working with me now. So the 2 monkeys have now got a relationship going on screen, which I think is very, very good.
I'm helping you get back in the room, you see.
Yeah, I do. So we talked about I, which is in the room. So if you're going to be in the room, be in the room. If you're going to a meeting, be in the room. If you're actually giving time out to listen to somebody speaking, well then listen to them. Otherwise, it's a bit of a waste of time.
It's massively hard, but over the next 21 days, what I'd love all the viewers to do is to notice how often they zone out. That's the point. I was ahead of you and I knew it was coming. Yes.
You bowl about that back.
Yeah, thanks. But once you've learnt to be in the room, the next thing then to do is to model off the very, very best.
Now, is this going back to, I mean, there's been a few people out there, Tony Robbins, he's very much, is this the same kind of thing?
Well, he says success leaves clues. I'm saying look at those people you admire and find something that they do that you admire. I'll give you an example. Do this, my friend. Do this. Make a circle like this. Put it to your chin. Yeah, and that's your chin, you see. And the classic example is
you all week.
You just modelled my behaviour, and I spoke clearly and I spoke slowly. You just modelled my behaviour. I was clear in what I said. Yep. And too often in business, we're modelling the competition who may not be doing it well either. What you've got to do is, what does Pret a Manger do really well? What does Amazon do well? What does Apple do well? So if you buy a new iPhone from Apple, I don't know if you understand, but when you buy a new phone, the box process has a vacuum inside. It goes psh when you open it. But if it takes longer than 9 seconds, what happens is you go from anticipation to frustration. If you want to model off the best organisations, excite people within 7 seconds. If you can't find a sandwich you want and it's always there and it's not there, people will look for 7 seconds. If you go on an internet site and you can't find a phone number within 7 seconds, people literally zone out and they go somewhere else. So find out what businesses are out there doing it really well and just plagiarise off the best. Model what the best organisations are doing. Don't model your competition. They may not be doing it that well.
And isn't that the issue, though, that businesses have? Because identifying what is good and what is bad.
It's what works for you. So what works for me is that we sell certain books, and if we model off the best, we offer a 100% guarantee. But then we wanted to go one stage further. We now offer a 100% guarantee for 100 years on our products, and then we go one stage further. You don't even have to send the book back to us, because people hate sending products back. You ring us up and say, I've bought one of your books, we don't like it, and we will send your money back within 7 seconds.
I mean, that is a big claim, but there's a lot of people that do that, don't they? Are you doing it on the assumption that people just won't bother to go that far?
95% of people like our products. Of the 5% that don't like our products, 4% don't even bother. But there is 1% who actually say, I don't like the product. So every year my mother rings me up. She wants the money back from the book that she didn't even buy to start with. And what we're trying to do is take the hassle away from people not being happy. They don't want to go to a post office and have a receipt and a self-addressed envelope. Just ring us up, say you don't like the product, we'll give you money back. Somewhere
along the line, you must have done this yourself. So what was the big modelling hint that you stole from somebody?
Well, Amazon in a way, but there's a German shirt company who did something similar. They said, we don't even want your products back, just ring us up, say you didn't like the product, and we'll give you your money back. Now I'm saying to people, so you've got a 100% guarantee on our products. If you don't even like it, you don't even have to send it back. Have you ever seen the adverts for the home gyms?
Yeah.
Okay, so home gyms fall flat, they go to flat pack and it goes under your bed, because that's where it's going to stay for the rest of our lives. But if you want your money back, you've got to take this contraption that is as big as your house to a post office to get your money back. And 99% of people are never going to do it, so they keep the gym underneath their beds. I wanted to let people know that if you really want to be the best of the best, tell people you've got a phenomenal product, but should you not like it, send it back. So that's what modelling is about.
That's a very powerful guarantee, isn't it?
I can afford to do it because it's quality of my products. If you trust your own product, why wouldn't you want to do it? If you trust your product, why wouldn't you do it?
So then, modelling from the best is an alternative. It's an alternative view from some of the other people that are out there. But modelling from the best, if success is already out there, why not just take the best bits of success and apply them to your business? So that's model from the best. A word that is sometimes hopelessly overused, the word, I am passionate about this, that and the other. Passion. I mean, what do we mean by that? And do we really need do we mean the word passion, or does it just fit well?
Well, one, it fits well, because otherwise it would be I.M.P.A.C.T, which so an impact makes it more easy to say. But I would be gutted if we finished this interview and you said, everything was great, but I didn't get much energy from you. I've already said I'm in the room. I've seen what other interviews did, because I did a bit of homework before. But passion is what sells. And when you see somebody who's passionate about their product, or they're passionate about the service they deliver, the energy is transferable. Or you can be the other way around. So I tell people there are loving, nurturing, caring people who are passionate, or you have what's called psychic vampires who just suck the lifeblood out of you. And they are those people where as you walk in, they just drain you of any energy. And it's like there was a passion meter going about and theirs hasn't been charged.
Right.
And I would hate, and I say this all the time, you may not like my content, but you're going to like my passion. You may not like something, but I'd hate for you to go, liked him, but he wasn't very passionate. If you're going to be in the room, you give everything you've got. That's why you often see rock stars who on stage, Mick Jagger, for example, 70-odd years old, he gives everything he's got on stage. I'm sure if you went to his changing rooms about 20 minutes afterwards, he'd be on the bed virtually passed out. Just because he's got nothing left. So when I'm with a customer, when I'm with a client, when I do a speech, I want to leave nothing on stage. Because that's what I believe passion's about.
So it's that 100% commitment to what you're going to say and how you're going to deliver it, and to get that out so they feel it.
Yeah, it's not about being loud. You can be soft, you could be writing, you could be doing poetry, you could be singing, but it's just giving everything you've got. I hate when people say, I could have given it a little bit more. When you see someone like the X Factor or The Voice, whatever, and someone goes, I'm going to give it all I've got. Well, why wouldn't you? This is your moment. You've got 1 minute and 20 seconds to sing in front of 12 million people. Yeah, I could have given it a bit more. Oh, my word, that just does me in.
So that's passion explained. Action now. A lot of people, this is one of the things that comes up on a regular basis. We have autoresponders, we have mailing lists, but people sometimes fall over at the very last hurdle of picking the phone up and actually taking action and calling somebody or closing a deal or even asking for it. Action's a real problem, isn't it?
So when all is said and done, much more is said than done. That we know. So a lot will get said today. We'll do this whole interview. We're going to share great advice.
And people ignore it.
Some people will ignore it. Some are going to say there's so much better elsewhere. But there's going to be a few people who actually take on board what we've said and their lives succeed. And you say, well, what happened? Well, I actually wrote to my mother. I actually rang up customer service. I actually did this. If you do something based on a performance, there's a good chance of success. If you just take it all on board, it's been a lovely hour. Thank you.
And goodbye. It's interesting because you go to these events, don't you, where they sell life-changing programs, a 10 CD set, and the 10 CD set costs thousands of dollars, maybe your redundancy money, and they will buy this and they'll take it home.
In the moment. They'll buy it in the moment,
and then they'll take it home and they'll think, that's my insurance policy, I'm going to put that next to the gym machine under the bed, yes. and there it will remain. I've got a story on that. There's a friend of mine who produces some of those CDs, and they realised after they'd sold a whole load of them for another company that CD number 8 and 9 was blank. 8 and 9 was completely blank. They never, ever got one single complaint.
Well, here's one of the points about the impact code. So when I wrote the book, the first chapter is the best chapter.
Right.
Because most people aren't going to get any further. No, but there's the truth.
But that is the truth, yes.
There's great stuff afterwards, but you've got to make... Have you ever read a John Grisham novel? One of the reasons John Grisham writes in a certain style is that he brings you in with the first 7 minutes. A bit like the James Bond films, which is exactly the same every Bond film, that there's the chase scene in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then the music comes in the film, because they want to engage you. If you aren't engaged in the first 7 seconds or 7 pages, you're never going to go further. So everything that we do is about how do we create action, but then we go one stage further. It's got to be simple action that people can do really fast. So you said it'll be interesting tonight whether people are in the room when they're with their partners.
Yes.
If they recognise that they're not, and they realise that if they were in the room and they listen, communication is much easier, they will see from tonight their lives will change. From tonight, if they really are aware. If this was a 7-week programme, and in 7 weeks you'll notice they're not going to last that long. Everything that I do is to make an impact now. Now. And that's the key difference. People have a very short attention span.
On that bombshell, hold your thought. My guest in today's programme is Nigel Risner, business speaker, and we're talking about the Impact Code. There is a book out there, it's called The Impact Code, Live the Life That You Deserve. Nigel Risner, it is available on Amazon right now. You'll find all the links, by the way, below the notes on this particular page. So it's great to have your company as always. Can we just thank you as well for all the people that do watch the programme on a regular basis. We are astounded by the number of people that are now downloading the programme on iTunes. We'd like to thank you very much indeed for that. You'll also find it on Roku, on our Roku channel as well. That's predominantly across the States. The thing that is surprising, that where the programme is watched, it's watched here in the UK, it's watched quite a lot in America via Roku and the other means as well. But the analytics that come back from iTunes actually show that the programme is watched, the third largest audience for this show is China, which is just amazing.
Well, there is 1.4 billion people there.
That's a good point. I'll go along with that point. So there you go. So 1.4 billion people can't be wrong, can they? So make certain that if you want to take us with you on the train or whatever, do please download us on iTunes as well. Also, leave us a stunning review. You've heard Nigel so far. Remember, the first part of the programme was the best part. It was just to sort of drag you in for the rest of it. Go to our iTunes page, go to your iTunes page, and then find Business Connections Live. Go to the ratings and reviews. Just click on that link there. That's going to take you to the page where you can actually leave your review, write a review, say something nice about the programme, something that will encourage other people to actually download as well. Give it a 5-star review, and if you do that, it will encourage other people to watch Business Connections live on iTunes as well, and we'd really appreciate you doing that, so thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, if you want to contact us for any reason, I'll give you all the housekeeping. It is studio@businessconnectionslive.com. That's our email address if you'd like to be on the programme perhaps. Maybe you've got something that you'd like to say, get in touch with us, let us know, and we'll we'll have a bit of a chat between us and we'll see whether it would make a great show. I'm sure it would. If you want to give us a call, 01784 256 777 is our telephone number. Don't forget, you can follow our stream of consciousness on Twitter at BCL Business TV. You can watch the programme live each Monday at 12 noon on both YouTube and also on Facebook Live. We're getting lots of response from Facebook Live. Facebook Live is very good. I think the lesson with Facebook Live is that you've got to have some form of a close on it. You've got to ask people to take action, because Facebook just seems to be, it's very easy to let Facebook be a very passive medium when you're using it. And if you want to see over 200 hours of great business advice, all for free, then go to the website at businessconnectionslive.com. So we're into our last quarter on the program. My guest on today's programme is Nigel Risner, one of the UK's leading business speakers. I've changed it every time I've said it, haven't I? I can't make up my mind.
Still leading though, so I'm okay.
Leading's quite good. It's funny. There are a lot of business speakers out there that, as we said, that will claim this. And we've had Brad Burton on, and he too is UK's leading motivational speaker, but very, very different. So there seems to be a number of different UK leading motivational speakers.
I'm just a speaker that makes a difference.
We like that. Are you the number one?
I'd like other people to tell me that.
You're the number one, Nigel.
There you go. Then I must be.
Today.
This hour.
This moment, because we're in the room. So we've looked at In the Room, we've looked at Model from the Best, we've looked at passion, that people have got to have passion when they're doing whatever they're doing. They've got to take action. What about communication then? I mean, communication has got to be somewhat the heart of all of this, because you could be passionate, you can be in the room, but if you don't tell anybody about it, they're never going to know.
We briefly spoke before about communicating like a zookeeper, but the point is, everything that you do when you're communicating, whether it's internal or external, has got to be for the reader and the listener. I often say to people, how many people in the room talk to themselves? The problem is, most people then question themselves, do I talk to myself? Talking to yourself is one thing, that's internal communication. So you need to build yourself up, you need to big yourself up. So as important as external communication is, internal communication is also important. Have you ever got lost, you're driving on the motorway, you come off a slip road, and then you start beating yourself up because you think you must be stupid? You're not stupid, you've just in that moment got lost. But if you start beating yourself up. Easy for me to say. If you start beating yourself up about your internal communication, you then are really bad at communicating externally. So once you know you're good enough, and once you know that you're a good person, then you've got to learn how to communicate externally.
Does Nigel Risner talk to Nigel Risner before you go on stage?
Yes.
And what does he say?
I've been invited here because I have an important message. They want my best stuff because they've seen me. Very rarely does someone go, we're looking for a motivational speaker. I think Nigel Risner's the answer. So they've chosen me for a particular reason. Of course I get nervous, but I channel that nerves into energy and excitement. When you don't get nervous, the only time you're not going to be nervous is when you're dead, in my opinion. You know, even the biggest rock stars, the biggest actors in the world, all are nervous. It's about channeling that energy. But when I communicate externally, the game is to understand who's my audience. Is it one person, 2, 5, 10, 500? The biggest I've done is 6,500. And when you're communicating to those people, is your message succinct? Is it clear? Is there a takeaway? What do you want them to do with the message? If it's all stuff from the past, and this goes about internal communications, if it's about stuff they could have learnt beforehand, send them a memo, let them stay at home. You want to have a meeting so that they can improve in the future. You can't change past behaviour. You can't change past performance.
You can only change what's happening right now.
And to affect change for the future. So is your message going to enhance people's lives or disempower people? Which one's it going to do?
Even applying all of that, have you ever been in a situation, it's a trick question because I know the answer, but have you ever been in a situation where with all that preparation, doing everything right, it hasn't worked?
Yes. Sometimes, and it's happened a few times, the audience don't want to hear the message, or I've had one audience that definitely did not want a speaker. We had a union involved. It was up north with a TV company. We're not going to mention any names, but they did not want a speaker, and the unions definitely didn't want to hear a motivational speaker talk about change. And the whole audience sat like this, for 35 minutes until I cracked 2 phenomenal jokes, and then you could see their shoulders moving up and down because they couldn't help themselves. But sometimes you can be responsible to the audience, not for the audience. So I couldn't do much about it, and I'm okay with that. I've spoken over 2,000 times, and 1,995 have been okay.
Do you ever walk off stage and beat yourself up?
Now, I've come off stage and thought I could have given it a bit more, or I was a bit tough on somebody. Bear in mind, a lot of my stuff is interactive, so I communicate with the audience. I will go into the audience. I'll sit on someone's lap, rustle some people up. And there have been times I thought, oh, maybe we've gone a bit too strong here. But you know what? You have to let it go. You've got to forgive yourself. You can't carry it.
All right, that's communication. Probably the one that is the most, some people would find the most difficult. I mean, he alluded at the very beginning of the programme, and that's trust. So how do you, I mean, this is about working within an environment and everything, isn't it? It isn't just about public speaking, getting people to trust you.
OK, so we're going to use something really live now, and it will embarrass you.
Oh, go on then.
So I've put myself in this position in a studio with somebody who's going to interview me, and I don't know what they're going to say. And I've got to trust the process, trust the great camera crew here, the sound and all the equipment to make me look good. That's called trust. And I trust everybody.
Got some really bad news for you.
Well, that we might find out. But here's the subsequent news. Then the second time, I may not trust if you want me to come back. But I trust everyone until they let me down. It makes life a lot easier. You see, if you don't trust anybody, you're going to get let down by 5% of the world, in my opinion. I might as well trust everybody and get let down 5%. So I fly all over the world, and when I get to the other side of the airport, I'm hoping there'll be a driver with my name somewhere on a board saying, come this way. 99% of the time it works.
So you're not the bloke that's worrying about when you set off about whether you're going to find a place to park?
You know what?
You are confident that when you get there...
This isn't some new blanket type of thing. There's going to be someone to help me with the universe. I just trust there'll be a parking space. And if there's not, there will be somewhere. No one has ever missed the plane just because of a car parking space. They were late to start with, and then they couldn't find a car parking space. So I've already left 2 hours early. There is a parking space in Heathrow. There is a car parking space in this right by the studios. Yes, I may have had to walk an extra 4 yards, but there was a space. So I trust the process. I trust you. I trust the crew here, and I trust you're going to do the best programme you can. It subsequently might be that I should have added something or taken away, but if I play the opposite, I'm not going to come unless I see the programme. I want to see 18 editions. I want to see the whole setup. Who knows what it's going to be like?
Do you know, we are rapidly approaching the end of the programme, and we've nearly really only scratched the surface of it.
So are you inviting me back?
I am. Would you come back?
Of course I'll come back, because I trust you now.
Will you trust me now? It's not yet. I'm just it's not finished yet. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 minutes? It's been a real insight, because I think a lot of people don't get what people like you talk about when you stand up there. And I think also the fact that what you say can be applied in practical terms, and there are a lot of people who stand on stage and will give advice, but it seems to be quite theoretical in the way it's approached. And what you've done is practical advice with examples. Is that the recipe for success for what you do you think?
If you can't implement what I've said, you're never going to do it. And I want you, by the time you leave here today, be in the room tonight with your partner. Find what other better, not TV companies, better organisations do, model off them. Make sure everything you do is passionate. You take some action, you communicate well, and you trust the process. Follow some of the 6 steps, and I guarantee you'll have a better life.
I'm going to make you say it all again now, because what we do at the end of every programme, we always invite our guests, of course, to look straight down the camera, and just a reminder of the key takeaways that we have on today's programme. I don't know about you, I've been looking forward to this programme. I'm building him up now for a big fall, but I've been looking forward to this programme ever since I saw you speak at one of the PSA meetings, actually, and it's been great to have Nigel in the studio. But really, there is so much that we can all take within our own businesses. It's a bit like having a consultant come in every week and tell us how we should be doing things better. And I think today, regardless of the size of your business, today's programme you should find useful, and there's definitely going to be things that you can implement into your organisation. Nigel, as I said, we always invite our guests to look straight down the camera, number 4 in fact, over here. Say who you are, where you're from, and the key takeaways that we need to remember from today's programme. Nigel, the airways are all yours.
My name is Nigel Risner. My business is Nigel Risner and Associates, and we ask clients to turn themselves from limited to limitless. We want people to be in the room, to really model off the very best organisations that are out there, in everything they do to be passionate, take loads of action, communicate like a zookeeper, and most of all, trust themselves and trust the process. It's been an honour to be here, and thank you very much indeed.
Fantastic programme, fantastic show. Don't forget the books are available. If you want, you've got the Impact Code, Live the Life That You Deserve by Nigel Risner. There is the book. And the other book, this is the one that I shall be reading this afternoon. It's a zoo around here. Now, this one here is Gordon. I think that might well be me. And here's Ralston, who's on camera today. So the full team. And I think Linda's not in the room. Just as well, actually. So there we go. That sums up the programme today. Hope you've enjoyed today's programme and found it somewhat useful. Can I just thank my guest today, Nigel Risner, business speaker, for joining us on this edition of Business Connections Live. Well, it just leaves it for me now to do the final bit of wrapping up and just to tell you what's coming up in the future. Next week's programme, where you talk to it's all right, thank you very much indeed. Just been whispered in my ear. We right up to the wire on this one. On next week's programme, we're talking to Samantha Earle. She's the General Manager of I.M.P.A.C.T driver training. If you work in that industry, I think you're going to find this very interesting, where we look at what you need to do when you're running an organisation that is supplying drivers into organisations. If you need drivers for a logistics organisation that maybe you're working with at the moment, what are the key criteria that you should be looking for when it comes to the kind of company you're talking to, and why it's important as well that your drivers are trained to a particular standard, and also, for that matter, what can happen to you? What are the responsibilities on your shoulders? What are you liable for under law when it comes to employing drivers on your behalf? You'll find out on next week's edition of the programme. Co-founder of Happen.com's coming in, Costas. He's going to be joining us on the program. By the time he comes in, I'm going to be able to pronounce his name. Dexter Moscow is going to be on the show, keynote speaker and business coach. He's a good guy. Deborah Hume from Minerva Engagement. A little bit of neuroscience from Deborah. She's going to be joining us very shortly on the program. Ali Crump from AA Drive Tech. Jackie Jarvis, who we both know, and also Warren Knight. That wraps up today's edition of the programme. Till we do it all again, thank you very much indeed for watching the programme. Listen, let's make it a date. Next Monday, 12 noon, for another live show. Till then, bye for now. Bye-bye.